There are two different philosophies to how you handle finished floors in Revit. The first way is to have your finished floor materials be part of the main structural floor. The second way to do it is to have your structural floor and then draw in a finished floor material floor over the top of it. Let's investigate that first way, which is drawing in a floor that has all the materials initially inside of it. To do that, underneath the Architecture tab, we need to select on the Floor tool. From here, on the Type Selector list, we can see one of those kinds of floors, which is a wood joist 10-inch ceramic tile floor. This means that it has a wood joist on the underneath side of it, and then ceramic tile on top, and it's all part of the same floor assembly. Well, in this case, I really want to choose a different floor off of the list, so we're going to pick on the Type Selector list and choose the bottom one, which is Wood Truss Joist 12-inch Carpet Finish. From here, we want to draw in a floor, rectangular shape, right in this area. So, pick on the Rectangle tool, click over here in the Drawing area, then draw in a rectangular shape. Now, the exact size of this doesn't really matter. I'm just going to make it roughly this size and then click in order to place that exterior boundary around the outside of our floor. From here, I'm going to click on the big green check mark to finish up the floor. Now, if we click out here in the space, we can then zoom in by spinning the wheel on our mouse and seeing here's the color red as well as some little dots, and this is indicating a carpet finish on top of our structural floor. In fact, if we select on this floor, then come over here to Edit Type, then pick on the button that says Edit next to Structure, we'll see that there's a carpet finish sitting on top of the structural floor as well as some plywood. Now, the next kind of floor that we want to do is going to be similar to this one, except it will not have a finish material over the top of it. So we're going to click on OK, then on OK, and then click just somewhere out here in space to get out of the command. From here, we're going to come up here to the Architecture tab on the ribbon, select on Floor, and then instead of the Wood Truss Joist 12-inch, we're going to pick the top one, which is 3-inch lightweight concrete on 2-inch metal deck. From here, we're going to draw in another rectangular shape. And now this doesn't have to be as big as what the previous rectangle was. We're just going to draw in a shape about this size. Then click on the big green check mark to finish this off. Then click somewhere out here in space. Now what we have is just a structural floor. It does not have that material on top of it, such as carpeting like what this one does. So our next step will be to draw a second floor on top of this floor, which will have that finished material. To do that, once again, underneath the Architecture tab, we need to select on Floor. Now, I know that there aren't any floors in here that have just that one layer of material associated with it. So what I'd like to do is create one from scratch. So to do that, we're going to select the generic 12-inch off of the list, because this is a floor that only has one material associated with it. It's just way too thick for our usage. From here, we're going to select on Edit Type. Now, select on the button that says Duplicate. And we want to give this floor a name, and we're just going to call it Material. Now, realistically, you should give this a name that makes sense for the material that we want to place for this floor. In this case, though, we're going to go with a fairly generic material. I just want to indicate that this could be any material by using the word material here. Now, I'm going to click on OK to this. Now I'm going to select on Edit next to the word Structure. From here, we can see that it's a structure, material by category, and thickness 1 foot. Well, what I'd like to do is change this from being structure to being a finished material, because it is ultimately going to be a finished material up here, up above where the structure of the floor would be at. Next, for the material itself, we're going to click where it has the by category. And for this material, find default floor off of the list. Click on OK to that. For the thickness, this could be 3/4 of an inch, a half an inch, whatever you want it to be. But in this instance, we're just going to make it be 1 inch in thickness. From here, click on OK. And what it's going to give you is a floor that has no structure underneath it, only one layer of material associated with it, and it's just going to be 1 inch in thickness. And realize this material could be any material that you wanted it to be, so it could represent carpeting or anything else. From here, click on OK, and then once again, click on OK to that. And what we want to do is draw in that floor directly over the top of our structural material or our structural floor. So select on the rectangle tool, make sure that that floor material is the floor that's listed here. Then from there, we're going to click the intersection of these two lines and then do the same thing down here in the other corner. Then click the big green check mark. Now, one thing we need to know though is that if we click the big green check mark right now, it's going to probably put this floor in just a little bit too low. So really we should set this offset to be 1 inch instead. But if you did in fact click on the big green check mark, what will happen is that floor would be a little bit too low here. It'd actually go into our other flooring material. So that you can see that, if we come up here to view and then pick on section, we're going to create a section that goes through this floor. So if we click once, click again, we can now see we have the section symbol going through here. And if we double click where that circular part of the section was at, then zoom in, we can see that we have this finished floor material and it's right now falling into our other floor. To adjust this after the fact, so if you didn't put 1 inch up here so that it'd be raised above the level, what you can do is that you can change it here in the properties after selecting on it. So the height offset from level is 1 inch, which happens to be the thickness of our flooring material. Move over here, and you can now see it's lifted this up 1 inch above, and now it's sitting directly on top of the structural floor. I do want to point out we could have drawn this in at 1 inch up above. And to do that, I'm going to go here to the project browser, go to the level 1, just by double clicking on level 1. When we executed the floor command from underneath the architecture tab on the ribbon, selected on floor, we could have set this as being 1 inch above and then drawn it in. And when we picked on the big green check mark, that floor would have been 1 inch above that structural floor here when we originally drew it in. Now I'm going to click the red X to get out of this command. Now the advantage to the one on the right, which has the 2 separate floors, to the one on the left, which only has the 1 floor, is really 2 different things. The first thing is that with this floor here on the left-hand side, if you draw on walls or anything that might sit on top of it, then those things might need to clean themselves up with that carpeting material. Sometimes they clean themselves up really good with the carpeting material, which is built into the floor, but other times they just won't clean up very well at all. But by drawing in exactly where you want your finished flooring material to be, perhaps right up to the edge of where that wall is located at, you can then very quickly and very accurately draw in exactly where you want your finished materials to be. The other thing that you can do fairly quickly on the fly is that you can choose just on that one material, such as in this case, I could pick on that top material and then select on properties. And then from here, if I had multiple different finished materials here on the list, I could click on the type selector list, pick another finished material off of the list, and quickly swap that carpeting out for some vinyl composition tile, or whatever that material is, swap it out for a different material. In the case of the floor on the left, you'd have to replace the entire floor, the structure of the floor, everything associated with that floor in order to make that change to the material. And as we know, we make a lot of changes during the design process, so it's much more likely that we're going to need to make changes to that top finished material than it is not making changes to that finished material. So as a result of that, whenever you're doing finished floors, your best bet is usually to draw in the structural floor first, then add a finished material over the top of it, as opposed to the floor on the left, which has it all combined. And the reason behind that is it gives you more control over the material properties that are going to be associated with that floor, as well as where those materials are going to go to and how they clean up with the other structures that are related with that floor plan.